The Georgia Bulldogs had a pretty amazing season. They went 11-3. Okay, it would have been nice if they had been able to make it past Notre Dame, but you can't complain about what their season was. I mean, seriously, you can't. And we have the next quarterback. We already know who the next quarterback is. We just have to get him a little bit more involved. So that's what we're going to cover him instead of the gentleman that everybody else is used to, which was Carson Beck. So I'm going to cover what the season was, and then I'm going to get into Gunnar Stockton, and then I'm going to talk about the offense and the defense. And in the offense, I'm going to discuss more about Carson Beck instead of Gunnar Stockton because, well, Beck was who carried most of the team. So I'm going to have my brief introduction, and then we're going to get right into it. Hey, folks, this is Paul. I want to thank you for viewing my video.
Sounds dry.
And I want to give one thought process. Okay. Georgia beat Clemson right off the bat. It was an embarrassment to Clemson. They then beat Tennessee Tech, which of course they would. They barely beat Kentucky. That one was a little bit of a strange loss. Or not a loss, but a strange game. Almost lost, 13-12. Then they got beat by Alabama. And it was another one of those that, people are looking at that like, wow. And then they beat Auburn pretty convincingly, beat Mississippi State not as convincingly, 41-31. They beat Texas. That one was a good game to watch. Beat Florida, which is a big rivalry game. Lost to Ole Miss 28-10. Like, you're looking at it going, how? And then they beat Tennessee. Now, I covered this when I covered the game. I still think that at least one of those touchdowns came because of the refs. Honestly. It was more the refs than it was them on one of the touchdowns, but they still would have beaten Tennessee. They beat UMass, not as convincingly as you would have thought. They beat Georgia Tech 44-42 that's an old school rivalry game. But here's the thing, it took them 8 overtimes. Then they replayed Texas. That took them overtime to beat them the second time. And then they lost to Notre Dame. Now, mind you, they didn't have Carson Beck for the Texas or the Notre Dame game. But it seemed like they just were running out of steam at the end of their season. So they started out pretty hot, except for the Alabama game. And then once they hit that Ole Miss game, it just... And in all honesty, go back and watch that Tennessee game. It was a little too convenient on what the refs were calling. But, yeah, let's get into Gunnar Stockton. Now, Gunnar Stockton, Kirby Smart, I think, had a good choice with Gunnar Stockton. I mean, Carson Beck, Drew Bobo, Gunnar Stockton. Hey, he's got a decent bench. Now, Gunnar Stockton's 45 of 64, 440 yards, 70.3% completion ratio. He threw for 1 touchdown, threw for an interception, got sacked 7 times. You can't keep a quarterback if you keep getting sacked that often. They should not have been sacked that often. And when I get into Carson Beck, the same problem. Gunnar Stockton rushed 21 times for negative 13 yards. Look, second season with Georgia. The first season he threw 12 of 19. He completed 12 of 19, threw for 2 touchdowns, still got an interception. They need to calm him down a little bit. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm just saying that he needs a little bit more seasoning. I don't think that quarterback wise that they're going to be able to allow him to keep doing that. He's going to have to calm down. He really is. And offensive line is going to have to guard him a lot better. Now, as for the offense, Carson Beck threw for 3,485 yards. Uh, Threw for 28 touchdowns, had 12 interceptions. He got sacked 18 times. For how powerful that Georgia was, you could not allow your quarterback to get sacked 18 times. Nate Frazier was leading rusher at 671 yards. Leading receiver was Arian Smith, 817 yards. Nate Frazier rushed for 8 touchdowns. Trevor Etienne, which, by the way, Etienne is more. While Nate Frazier got more looks, Etienne excites more people. He got 9 touchdowns. Dylan Bell got a touchdown. Carson Beck actually rushed for a touchdown. And Branson Robinson got 3. Let's see here. Dwight Phillips got 1. Cash Jones got 1. Arian Smith, leading receiver, 48 receptions, 817 yards, 4 touchdowns. Dominic Lovett got 6 touchdowns, 59 receptions, 607. Dylan Bell got 4 touchdowns, 43, 466. 3 for Lawson Lucky, 24, 348. Cash Jones and Oscar Delp both got 4 touchdowns. That was Jones got 24 and 275. Delp got 21, 248. It was pretty spread around. There were a couple of more players that got it. It was pretty spread around. It's just that offensive line just wasn't holding like it should. And that hurts what you can get off. But if you take a look, I mean, they won the SEC title with a new quarterback. They did a lot of things. They were holding decently enough, but wasn't enough to. It still wasn't a Kirby Smart team, if you know what I mean. That's one of the things. But then again, though, I think Kirby mostly goes to beat Florida, and the rest of it's just the good, the good stuff. Other than that, so let's get into the defense. Okay, Malachi Starks, leading tackler, 77 tackles. Dalen Everett had 3 interceptions. If you take a look, they had 8 interceptions, no touchdowns off of interceptions. That's not a good sign. Sacks wise, over the year, they only had 37 sacks the entire year. They only took off 269 yards off a sack. So, you know, Chaz Chambliss had 6.5. Jalen Walker had 6.5. Michael Williams had 5. This defense wise, this is part of what the problem was. Like, if you take a look, they didn't have a lot of good tacklers on their team. And as I said, they didn't have. You can't have. Their defense was just not there this year. That's part of the reason why they were having problems with teams like Ole Miss and other people like that. And Alabama, you've got to bring an A game when it comes to defense. And let me tell you, they weren't bringing it on the defense this year. It was an okay defense. They got them to the playoffs, but yeah, they're going to have to work on their defense. I would like to see what they are able to do past that. I mean, when your leading interceptor had three, they had Dan Jackson had two, and then a few other guys had one. Yeah, this was not a defense that one Kirby Smart's used to having, and two, this is not a Georgia or SEC kind of defense right there. This is a, hey, we're going to do our best. That was the problem this year. So, yeah. Now, coming up next year, they're starting out, they've got Marshall, Austin Peay. Both of them should be easy wins. Austin Peay especially, but Marshall's not a bad team, but they're not to the caliber of what a Kirby Smart Georgia is. Then they've got to go to Neyland. They got Alabama coming to them. They got Kentucky coming to them. They're going to Auburn. They got Ole Miss, Florida, normal at Jacksonville. Then you've got Mississippi State. They're going there. They got Texas again. Then they got Charlotte, that's not even a consideration. And then they got Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech's a team on the rise. Georgia Tech's going to be fighting. If they are as worn out as they were at the end of last year, this is going to be, I mean, Tennessee and Alabama is going to wear them out. Kalen DeBoer is going to be trying to prove himself. And Josh Heupel, you're going into Neyland Stadium? Yeah. Josh Heupel doesn't like losing in Neyland. Nobody at Tennessee likes losing at Neyland. So that game is going to be pretty horrific for them. And then they got Ole Miss, Florida, Texas. Okay, their last from October 18th to November 29th. There's about the last month and a half. Ole Miss, Auburn, Ole Miss, Florida. Okay, Mississippi State's going to give them a break. Then Texas, Charlotte now, Georgia Tech. Look at what Georgia Tech did this year. Georgia Tech's going to be looking to try what they did again. Florida, DJ Lagway, Billy Napier, yeah, that, unless they just totally melt down, that's going to be a hard-fought game. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's got another mercenary team coming in. And Texas, you don't think Sark's not got a team? Yeah. Kirby Smart's got a death row level worry. They're saying that he could probably make it to the championship or to the playoff. He's going to have to coach his tail end off. He can't do. Gunnar Stockton's going to have to be playing at his best. He can't have the interceptions like he's been having. And let me tell you, this is not going to be an easy season for them. So, this has been Paul with Redneck Sports. I hope you've enjoyed my series on the 2024 SEC teams. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.